Welcome back. My name is Jon Patton, and welcome to the first ever TGC Factory Tour. Let's take a look inside Daniel Defense. All right, boys and girls, so here we are inside Daniel Defense. What's behind me right now is kind of the core of how their rifles start to come together. This is where all of the steel components are manufactured. They have a facility in Richland, South Carolina, and that is where they do all the aluminum parts. But right here is where things like gas blocks and muzzle devices are created. Let's check it out. Among the parts that get made right here in Georgia, this is the bolt for the new DD5, the new 308 they just came out with, and it's got the dual ejector holes that you can see. Obviously, this is unfinished, but this gives you an idea of the type of stuff they're making. Everything from bolt carrier groups, we've got some extractors over here on the side, and just a complete myriad of all the steel parts made right here. This is really interesting. So what we have right here is one of the barrel blanks. Obviously, it doesn't really look like much, but Thomas is going to tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, so they come in big batches like this, and as you can see, the diameter is pretty thick. And you'll see through the hammer forging process, this barrel blank will go about half the size and diameter down, just based off the pure pressure from the hammer forging machines.
And you know, guys, that is something that DD is known for. These cold hammer forged barrels, they're absolutely rock solid, and this is where they start. So guys, this is the heart of the Daniel Defense rifle, the cold hammer forged barrel making machine. As you can see, this thing is working overtime. Right now they're producing a barrel every 3.5 to 4 minutes. This thing is imparting between 50 and 55 tons of force on those materials to create these barrels. It's really, really impressive, guys. And on top of that, right now, they're running almost 24/7. Unreal. They're just cranking them out here. Let's see what it looks like on the other side. What's really interesting here is that all of these barrel blanks come out the same, and then they're turning them to get the various lengths and weights and things like that. Everything down from an SBR barrel all the way up to an 18-inch barrel. Really neat. So there we go, a finished hammer forged Daniel Defense barrel coming out of the machine. Look at this. Boom. Just like that. That is the start of the Daniel Defense rifle. So this is where you guys can see this kind of interesting texture on here, and that's actually where the hammers are impacting and kind of shaping as it rotates through. This thing is just reshaping this material around the entire circumference. They're actually cold hammer forged around a mandrel, which as it's rotating imparts the rifling and creates the chambering of the rifle. So Raymond here is actually inspecting one of the cold hammer forged barrel, kind of the blanks, as it were.
Well, first of all, I do dimensional checks. We want to know if the barrel is the correct size. We need to know if the bore size is correct. We need to check the chamber depth. We don't want to send guns out with the wrong chamber depth. You know what can happen there. Once I get those checks made, I'm looking at the barrels. As you'll see here, you can see the lands and the grooves. I want to make sure the shoulders are square, 90 degrees. I want to make sure there are no imperfections. I can tell if anything's wrong with the barrel.
So we're looking for a really clean mark here and here?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I look at it, from end to end.
How many of these are you getting through in one day?
In a 24-hour period, probably about 500 barrels. What we do is a random inspection. I don't inspect every barrel, but I look at every 20th barrel. Once they're turned, we inspect them again. I'll check the same dimensions, head space, barrel size and everything, bore, muzzle.
So basically, every single step, you guys are checking to make sure that everything is right.
Absolutely. From back there on the forge, the guys are doing these same numbers. They're looking at them. I'm checking them when they're finished turned. The other people in the QA department check them once they come back from chrome and phosphating. So they go through the same checks a number of times.
That's really, really important for consistency, right?
Absolutely. More importantly, it's consistent. I mean, it's important for safety.
And that's what we like to hear. Teresa here is going to explain how she inspects the chrome lining and kind of why that's important. Teresa, how are you? You good?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm outstanding. I'm in Daniel Defense. I'm excited.
Awesome. Great. Glad to have you.
So if you could, just kind of walk us through what you would do with a single barrel and explain the process.
Okay, these barrels have already been chromed. So what I do is I have a little check system here that I go by. And we'll check the head space, make sure the head space is okay, you know, and then we'll do our drop pins to make sure the drop pin falls. Basically, just check all the checks that are on here. That's about what I do.
So as we continue through the Daniel Defense Factory, we saw the steel parts being made. We saw that. We saw the cold hammer forging. And down here is actually where the barrels get profiled. So you're going to start seeing your lightweight profiles, your SBR barrels, all that sort of stuff are done on these machines right here. So now we're taking a look at all the aluminum parts that Daniel Defense makes. We're in the Ridgeland, South Carolina facility, and behind me is where you see the machines that are making the rails, as well as some of the smaller aluminum parts like front sight posts and things like that, small rail sections. And in front of me here, we have some of the raw material, the extrusions for those rails. The rails are some of the most distinct parts of the Daniel Defense rifles, so we cannot show you everything about how they go into the machines and things like that, but we can show you some really, really cool stuff, some raw and finished materials. And then we've got behind me here, this is where all your upper and lower receivers are finished out. There's also a QC section here where they're checking to make sure that everything is up to spec, everything is exactly how they need it and want it. It was at this point that they showed us something that has never been on video before, the assembly of the rifle. They start with a matched set of receivers, label them, and then they split down two sides of the same line. The idea with labeling them is so that they go through assembly and meet on the other end as a complete rifle, and the core of the rifle, the receivers, are still matched, resulting in a higher quality end product. Now, I know most of you have seen a rifle being built before, so we're not going to worry about the nitty-gritty of how this is done. There are a couple things to note, though. They use a modified version of the Geisley reaction rod, which really tells me how valuable that tool is. Then, you can see Joe putting on the barrel nut and flange for attaching the rail system on this M4A1. After installing the gas block, he puts on the top side of the rail and uses a special clamp to hold the receiver and the rail in line while it gets attached to the flange. The bottom then goes on, followed by the last few odds and ends of the upper receiver. The lower is a fairly standard process that many of you are familiar with, and you'll note that green sticker. That's the label I talked about earlier so that they can match it with the upper later. One of the key things that really stands out to me during this entire process is the care that goes into this. Every step of the way, all of the people that work at Daniel Defense are on the same page. They all know that the final product has to live up to the reputation that they've all built together. We are in the gun vault here at Daniel Defense, and what's behind me now is the trade show section. They have two different sides here, and they keep them separate. These are actually the models that you would see when you're going to the NRA show, the Greater American Outdoor Show, and things like that. All of these are non-firing. They have their firing pins shaved because they want them to be safe and nobody can fire a live round at a trade show, but this is really cool. These are also all the guns that they use for pictures and things like that, and as you can see, there's a few missing because they're always out at trade shows. Really cool. And now on the other side of the room is where you'll find the T&E, the testing and evaluation guns. They send them out to media personnel, they send them out to law enforcement, things of that nature, and these guns over here get beat hard. I mean, look at this thing. Look at that. I think that's seen some use. What do you guys think? You know, there are companies out there that'll make claims all day, but they might not be able to back them. I think this consistency and beat up rifles over here says that they can back them. So this particular rifle is 1 of 100. This was in the gun vault here, and I think this is pretty neat. So as you can see, there's a nice little medallion on here. This is the Marty Daniel rifle. And this is a very, very limited edition. Obviously, it's got that beautiful gray color on it. You may have seen this at NRA or Great American Outdoors or anything like that. And this is the kind of stuff that they keep nice around here, and they can show this off. And this is it's just a really cool gun, guys. This was the rifle that was blown up with 35 pounds of binary explosive by Larry Vickers, and this rifle actually still works. The rail's a little bit loose, it's a little banged up. I'll flip it around. You guys can kind of see the optics all scraped up. This was inside a car that was blown up. It still works. Wow, that's kind of cool. We've also got another one here as I flip around. That was part of their torture tests. This one was dropped out of a helicopter. It was shot with a shotgun. And does this one still work? And it still works. That's pretty unreal.
Daniel Defense is a company that I have massive respect for. They continue to not only grow and offer solid products, but they continue to adapt with the firearms industry with new products like the ISR. They also continue to help defend our Second Amendment rights. The reality is that over the next 5 to 10 years, DD will continue to drive home the fact that they aren't just another AR company. They are the AR company that everyone else gets compared to. Huge thank you to the Daniel family, as well as Thomas, Joe, Raymond, Teresa, and everyone else that I was able to speak to on my visit to Daniel Defense. It was an experience that I'm not going to forget anytime soon. If you guys out there watching want to see more factory tours, let me know what companies we should visit down in the comments below. And as always, thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon.